I don't know, man. Dana White, Turkey, it seems like they are saying different things, but they are supposed to be working together. That's what I want to talk about in this video. Ego thoughts, man. Let's talk about it. Now, I've already touched on this in past videos, but I wanted to do another one and break down something that I noticed. Basically, when they did the press conference for Canelo Pave and William Skull, a couple things happened that had the boxing world talking. For one, Turkey looked like he refused the WBC belt to be in the photo op, right? Where they do the fighters face off and whatnot. And that was a pivotal moment because people are like, hold on. So now all these sanctioning bodies helped him. All these promoters helped him. And then now he did this deal with Dana White. And it seemed like he don't care about them anymore. Like they were just stepping stones to get where he really wanted to be, right? He has partnerships with the WBC, the WBA, but then you didn't allow for their belt, which has been around 50 plus years or whatnot, to be included in the picture. So many people looked at that as a jab or a slight, as they should. And then you've seen a bunch of WBC champions post pretty much the next day how proud they were to be WBC champions. Turkey has also made conversation or statements about how he intends to run TKO boxing with Dana White, and basically said they're going to be the premier boxing league, and they're doing things their way. They're getting rid of like promoters. They don't really want to work with other promoters. Dana White said this, right? Turkey said this. But then after receiving poor feedback, so you got Dana White and Turkey basically saying different things. Turkey initially approached it and it seemed like he was on the same page as Dana White, but now with Turkey retracting and, you know, putting out, oh, boxing's big enough for us all to work together and this and that, what you're saying is not consistent with what Dana White has been saying. In fact, Dana White was asked about TKO boxing at a presser after the Alex Pereira fight, right? And he was talking about he's been talking about boxing. We got to build it from the ground up. Boxing is so broken. Boxing needs to be fixed. Yada, yada, yada. Make boxing great again. All this stuff. Now, I'm not going to get too sidetracked, but I got to comment on that. Bro, this is a scam. Anybody who's saying boxing needs to be fixed and it's in the low spot, they don't know what they're talking about. Here's why. In 2023, we got Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, a fight people wanted to see for years, for Undisputed. The same year, you got a mega fight between Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, the last fight to do over 1 million pay-per-view buys comfortably, right? So that was in 2023. Last year, we got Better Be It versus Bivol, Undisputed. You got Tyson Fury versus Usyk, Undisputed. We seen upsets like Tim Tszyu, right? Tim Tszyu and Fundora, Tim Tszyu and Murtazaev, etc. So you've seen changing of the guards, and you know, boxing is perfectly fine, perfectly healthy. Of course, like all sports, there are some things that can be fixed, that should be fixed. But you could say that with the NBA and like flopping or, you know, different things. So people are trying to brainwash the fans that boxing is not doing good. And I would argue that boxing has more of a pulse than UFC right now. UFC has 0 stars. They have no star power. The biggest star they just had just lost to Ankalaev, and that was Alex Pereira. Izzy has taken back-to-back losses. Conor McGregor has caught SA cases. He hasn't fought in like 5 years. Then you have like Dustin Poirier, who is pretty much doing one more fight and retiring. Max Holloway just got knocked out, right? So a lot of the older fan favorites are either like losing and or thinking about retirement and things like that. They have to bring Jeremy Stevens, who was in the bare knuckle, to help sell the card because of the location. So for Dana White, who said Power Slap will overtake the UFC, for him and others to be talking about boxing is so broken and needs fixing, why would you even want to get into the sport if you have Power Slap and UFC, and if what I'm saying is inaccurate, right? So that's cap. Moving on. Turki, Dana White, they don't seem to be on the same page. One is talking about, we don't really want to work with other sanctioning bodies. We want our own belt. We want our own infrastructure. Boxing is so broken. We want to build it from the ground up, yada, yada, yada. And Turki is now having to double back and clean up his previous thoughts because fans got angry and, you know, obviously sanctioning bodies and promoters and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I don't think boxing is broken at all. I think UFC right now needs more help. At one point they had Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, and, you know, think of like female UFC fighters. There was a point where Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes, Miesha Tate, and all these females were pretty popular. I'm just talking about the female fighters were popular. Now, who's the most popular female fighters in the UFC? And then the ones that are popular, like Mackenzie Dern or whatever, they looking at her cakes. You know what I mean? So I don't believe boxing is broken. And to me, this is a bad sign for TKO and Dana White to get off to such a bad start, because Turki has hinted that Dana White might put on Crawford and Canelo fight. But to me, that's not significant, because boxing and business in general, it's about sustainability. To me, that's a one-off type of fight. That's a weird freak fight. I don't even really care to have it even happen, me personally, as a diehard boxing fan, right? But at best, you come in a game, let's say with that as your first fight, cool. You try to do whatever that's going to be and make it into a spectacle. And then what do you have? Who's on your roster? And you have Canelo. He's like 30-something, but he's kind of an old 30-something because he's been a pro more than half of his life. He turned pro at age 15. Then you have Crawford. Even if Crawford upsets Canelo, he'll be 38 in September. You can't really build the company and your brand around a fighter pushing 40. And then if Crawford wins, what else? Who else could he fight to follow that up? You know, is he going to move back down and fight Boots Stanionis winner? That don't make sense. If you just beat Canelo, is he going to move and, you know, fight Virgil Ortiz after, if he can beat Canelo? You know what I mean? So I don't see who can spearhead TKO boxing. It's going to be like the tough competition, the UFC Ultimate Fighter, where they try to produce some stars from the ground up, which is cool, but in boxing, that takes a lot of time. And even people who win contests like that, they've already done that with Sylvester Stallone and Sergio Mora, and he never went on to be no pay-per-view star or draw.